They keep coming out of the badlands of the world, each one seemingly stranger than the last. Dinosaurs, who took every imaginable body part to extravagant extremes. Baffling, dazzling, elegant, ugly, and utterly surprising.
It doesn't look real. The skull is just like something out of a science fiction movie.
They're an example of evolution gone wild.
That neck that keeps on going and keeps on going, that's bizarre.
In the mysterious lost world of the bizarre dinosaurs, who were the strangest of the strange? And how on earth did they get that way? It may be 110 degrees in the shade. Never mind the fact that there is no shade. But wherever the brutal sun beats down on dinosaur territory these days, it's a good time to be a paleontologist. In the 21st century, dozens of new dinosaurs a year are coming to light. They're not just emerging from the American West. Now Argentina, Antarctica, Africa, and especially China are spitting out finds that have scientists scratching their heads. And some of these dinosaurs are so loaded with outlandish appendages, they're revolutionizing what we thought we knew about them. But the dinosaur story doesn't start with the bizarre and the gigantic. 150 million years before the dinosaurs' catastrophic end, creatures like this little standard issue prototype had the run of the place. Coelophysis has a rather banal body shape. It looks pretty much like a big lizard, walks on its hind legs, eats meat, hunts in packs. Other than that, not much to phone home about. But paleontologists think all dinosaurs descended from plain little animals like this guy. So how did they get from little Coelophysis to say this, or this, or this? What strange impulses of evolution could have molded such things? Consider the spectacular weirdness of this behemoth, Spinosaurus. One of the largest killers ever to walk the earth. So huge and fantastic is this predator that he's managed to steal the show, literally, from T-Rex. When it came time to scare the pants off moviegoers for a third time, Jurassic Park scientific advisor Jack Horner knew exactly what he wanted.
I decided that the T-Rex had had enough press and we were going to get rid of him. So I had Stephen put Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. Spinosaurus is, as far as we know, the largest meat-eating dinosaur. The animal was somewhere around 60 feet long, which makes it a lot bigger than a T-Rex, which is around 40 feet long. So that's a pretty cool dinosaur.
Cool and mystifying. Bigger than T-Rex, but with a head that looks like a crocodile's, and stacked, with spines along its back as tall as a man. The spines, up to 6-foot-long extensions of the animal's vertebrae, have been the subject of lively debate. Some think they anchored a massive muscular hump that would have made the enormous dinosaur all the more powerful. Others have suggested that the spines supported a skin-covered sail that could help regulate the animal's temperature by radiating heat or catching the sun's rays. One thing is clear. The spines must have been doing something important, because they would have been a drag, literally.
I think it would have made the animal more clumsy, I mean, quite frankly. It would have made it less agile. It would have made it heavier. It would have made it catch wind in a strong breeze. There's no good advantage to it that you can think of except showing that, hey, I can grow this 5-foot sail, and I'm healthy, and I'm bigger than you. And here I am over here. There I am over there. This is my territory. You're my mate.
Horner agrees that the sail was for showing off. But he thinks Spinosaurus's spine might have made a nicer display in the water, where the creature may have spent most of its time. Why? Because the creature's head bears a remarkable resemblance to that of a crocodile. A really big crocodile.
Its snout is constructed for eating fish. And so it's quite likely that these animals actually were aquatic. And so the only things that were really sticking out that were visual were sticking out of the water were these big fins on their backs. And so, you know, much of their display may have actually been while they were in the water.
From here, the Spinosaurus puzzle gets even more complicated. What's the use of being bigger than T-Rex if you're just going to hang out by a river and fish? Why have jaws powerful enough to shred another dinosaur? Forearms armed with long, curved claws. What's the evolutionary point of all these deadly developments? Especially if you're going to carry a handicap on your back. So far, Spinosaurus is keeping its secrets to itself.
We have never really seen anything quite like it in the dinosaur world or thereafter. I mean, they're an example of evolution gone wild.
Poor T-Rex, taking a backseat to Spinosaurus on the big screen. But let us not forget that when it comes to bizarre killing machines, T-Rex is in a class all of its own. That iconic, oversized head with its 9-inch serrated teeth. And one of the most devastating bite forces the world has ever seen. And then there is that riddle of riddles, those insanely tiny arms.
You might have been able to scratch his belly after he ate. That's about it. Couldn't reach his mouth, couldn't clap. Yeah, couldn't do much of anything.
The T-Rex head versus hand story had a completely logical explanation until now. It goes like this. It has been shown over and over again that when evolution capitalizes on one part of the anatomy, other parts may become useless, redundant, and eventually disappear. With a head that big and powerful and agile, who needs arms?
Why does T-Rex have small arms? Because he didn't need them and was probably losing them.
What appears to have happened in the Tyrannosaur lineage leading up to T-Rex is that the bodies of these animals just kept going, but the arms got left behind. They're also losing fingers. They've gone down to 2 functional fingers.
This answer makes compelling sense at first. And T-Rex was not alone in taking this apparently sensible trade-off in deadly assets. While the tyrant was roaming North America, one of the weirdest-looking large predators ever was rampaging in South America. Called the meat-eating bull for its peculiar horns, Carnotaurus is not pretty. It has a strangely shaped head, tiny teeth, and arms so small they would make even T-Rex giggle. What was it doing with them? The anatomy of Carnotaurus is baffling, to say the least.
Carnotaurus is one weird-looking dinosaur. It's got a very foreshortened skull. It looks like someone's gone up to this dinosaur and smashed it in the face with a frying pan. But one thing that really strikes out, though, is this enormous shoulder blade. It is absolutely vast. At the end of the shoulder blade, you'd expect to see enormous arms, but you don't. They're absolutely tiny. In fact, it makes the arms of Tyrannosaurus rex look large.
So these great killers, living in the very last age of the dinosaurs, were apparently on the brink of trading in their arms completely for the sake of even more lethal heads. Makes sense, right? But two new discoveries have thrown a monkey wrench into that scenario, and the mystery deepens into debate. First, you'd expect useless arms to be, well, useless. Instead, studies on T-Rex biomechanics show that T-Rex could probably have curled some 400 pounds with those pathetic-looking arms.
These are actually some pretty sturdy structures, suggesting to us that T-Rex actually did use those arms.
And now the argument that Tyrannosaurus traded arms for heads over the ages, culminating in T-Rex, is being challenged by a startling new find. A more ancient, miniature, would-be T-Rex. The creature, though only about 10 feet long, has already started trading arms for head 60 million years before Tyrannosaurus rex.
We have found the Tyrannosaur, the roots of the Tyrannosaur radiation, an animal that has all the features that we think are truly characteristic of Tyrannosaurs. The two-fingered hand, the enlarged brain, the enlarged jaw muscles, the long and lanky legs for running, the tiny arms. We're going to call it Raptor Rex.
The find is so new that Paul Serino has had time only to model Raptor Rex's head and neck. Not as fearsome as T-Rex's, perhaps, but clearly a ferocious profile. But it's the tiny arms that upset the apple cart. This was supposed to be a much later development.
Everywhere you looked, you found the features which we know characterized the later Tyrannosaurs in the late Cretaceous. They're no longer alone in having arms so small they couldn't reach the mouth or pick the nose.
In other words, if Tyrannosaur arms had started to disappear millions of generations before T-Rex, they should have been long gone by the time the Big Bang snuffed them out, traded in for even scarier heads. So why were the arms still there? Perhaps the man who named T-Rex back in 1905, Henry Fairfield Osborn, had it right all along. Those arms were not engineered for battle, but for love.
He saw the big snaggly teeth, and he said, this is for killing dinosaurs, and the long feet. And he said, this is for catching dinosaurs. And he saw the tiny arms, and he said, that part is for loving. That's the tickle part of T-Rex.
Tickling one's mate, especially a female tyrannosaur you'd rather not upset, makes perfectly good sense. Male anacondas today seem to have taken the same evolutionary tack. Just a tiny bit of the snake's hind leg remains, and its only apparent purpose is sexual tickling. For now, the riddle of T-Rex's freakishly small arms endures. One thing we do know, the predators were hardly alone in taking the evolutionary road to the bizarre. Back in the Jurassic, when 10-foot-long hunters were honing their killing ways, evolution was setting them up for a big surprise. The starting gun of a great arms race, it sounded.